China just deployed something to the deepest place on Earth that the Pentagon didn't see coming. And no, it's not a submarine. It's something far more permanent, far more strategic, the kind of thing that makes admirals lose sleep and rewrite doctrine. Keep watching and find out why the bottom of the ocean just became the most valuable real estate on the planet. The Mariana Trench, 7 miles down. That's deeper than Everest is tall. The pressure down there would crush a tank like a soda can. Your lungs would collapse before you even got halfway. We treated it like an alien world, unreachable, irrelevant, a curiosity for scientists and the occasional billionaire with too much money and a death wish. Turns out, we were dead wrong. In March of 2024, a Chinese research vessel dropped something into the trench that changed everything. Not a probe, not a camera, a permanent installation. A deep-sea monitoring station capable of sitting on the ocean floor for years, to listening, watching, collecting data that could tip the balance of global power. And here's the kicker. Nobody could stop them. They weren't breaking any laws. The deep ocean, it's basically international waters on steroids. No borders, no ownership. First come, first served. So why does this matter? Why should you care about some metal box sitting at the bottom of the Pacific? Because whoever controls the deep ocean doesn't just control fish. They control the future of warfare, global communications, and trillions of dollars in resources that most people don't even know exist. Let's rewind. The Mariana Trench isn't just deep. It's strategically deep. It sits in the Western Pacific, smack between Guam, the Philippines, and Japan. You know, those places where the U.S. has military bases. Those same bases that would be absolutely critical if, say, someone decided to make a move on Taiwan. The trench is 1,580 miles long and 43 miles wide. That's roughly the distance from New York to Denver, carved into the seafloor like a scar. And it's not alone. There are trenches all over the world. The Tonga Trench, the Philippine Trench, sitting just off the U.S. coast. For over a century, these places were ignored. Too deep, too dangerous, too expensive. But technology has this funny way of making the impossible suddenly very profitable. Here's what changed. Rare earth elements. If you've never heard of them, buckle up. These are the materials that make modern life possible. Your smartphone? Packed with them. Electric car batteries? Can't build them without rare earths. Wind turbines, fighter jets, missile guidance systems, satellites, all of them need these elements. And guess where massive deposits of them are sitting, completely untouched? The deep ocean floor, loaded with manganese, nickel, cobalt, and rare earth metals. Billions of tons of them. Some estimates put the value in the tens of trillions of dollars. And unlike mining on land, where you have to deal with governments, environmental regulations, and angry locals, the deep ocean is a free-for-all. Grab what you can, as fast as you can. China figured this out before anyone else. While the U.S. was busy playing whack-a-mole in the Middle East, Beijing was quietly building the world's most advanced deep-sea exploration program. They've got submersibles that can dive deeper than any American vessel. They've got underwater drones that can map the ocean floor in detail we didn't think was possible. And now, they've got monitoring stations sitting in the trenches, collecting data 24/7. But it's not just about rocks, it's about cables. You probably think the internet is wireless, right? Satellites and 5G and all that. Nope. Over 95% of global internet traffic runs through undersea cables, thin fiber optic lines lying on the ocean floor, connecting continents. Every email you send, every video you watch, every financial transaction, all of it travels through these cables. And guess where a lot of them run? Right past the Mariana Trench. If you wanted to tap into global communications, or more importantly, if you wanted to cut them during a conflict, you'd need to know exactly where those cables are. You'd need to map the terrain. You'd need monitoring equipment in place, ready to deploy cutting or tapping devices when the time comes. That's what China just did. They didn't announce it with fanfare. No press conference, just a quiet research mission that dropped a station into the trench and moved on. The Pentagon noticed. You can bet they noticed. But what can they do about it? Send the Navy down 7 miles to unplug it? Good luck with that. Let's talk about submarines for a second. Modern nuclear subs are designed to operate at depths of around 800 feet, the absolute crush depth, where the hull gives out and everyone dies horribly, is maybe 1,500 feet, the Mariana Trench, 36,000 feet deep. That's not even in the same universe of engineering. This made the deep ocean irrelevant to naval warfare. It doesn't matter. But here's the thing. You don't need to put people down there. You just need sensors, autonomous systems, and suddenly the trench becomes the perfect place to hide listening devices that can detect submarines passing overhead. The U.S. has spent billions developing stealth subs that can slip past enemy detection. Those subs rely on the ocean being too big, too deep, too noisy for anyone to track them effectively. What if that's no longer true? What if China just built a network of deep-sea sensors that can hear everything? Suddenly, American submarine superiority, the backbone of U.S. naval power, isn't so superior anymore. And you can't just blow up the sensors. They're in international waters. Destroying them would be an act of war. This is the genius of the move. It's aggressive without being overtly hostile. It's strategic without firing a shot. It's the same playbook China used in the South China Sea. Build artificial islands. Claim they're for research. Oh, and by the way, we're putting airstrips and missile batteries on them. What are you going to do about it? Us playing catch-up. In 2023, the Navy quietly launched its own deep-sea initiative. They're working with private companies to develop autonomous underwater vehicles that can operate at extreme depths. They're mapping the ocean floor with new sonar technology. They're even talking about deploying their own monitoring stations. But they're late. And in strategy, being late is the same as being wrong. China's already there. They've already got the data. They've already got the infrastructure. And they're moving fast. Here's where it gets even more interesting. The Arctic. As climate change melts the polar ice caps, something remarkable is happening. New shipping routes are opening up. The Northwest Passage, that legendary route explorers died trying to find, is now navigable for part of the year. And it cuts shipping times between Asia and Europe by 40%. That's massive. That's money. That's power. But the Arctic Ocean is also deep. Really deep in places, and just like the Pacific trenches, it's becoming a strategic hotspot. Russia's been building up its Arctic military presence for years. China calls itself a near-Arctic power, which is hilarious considering Beijing is 1,800 miles from the Arctic Circle. But they're investing heavily in icebreakers and Arctic research. Why? Because they know what's coming. Undersea cables through the Arctic, mining operations on the Arctic seabed. And yes, monitoring stations in the deep Arctic trenches that can track submarines trying to use the polar ice as cover. The ocean floor is the new frontier, and the race is on. Let's not forget about resources. The deep ocean doesn't just have rare earth elements. It's got methane hydrates, frozen natural gas trapped in ice on the ocean floor. Some estimates suggest there's more energy stored in methane hydrates than in all the world's oil, coal, and natural gas combined. It's just sitting there, waiting. Japan's already experimenting with extracting it. China's invested billions in the technology. The U.S. barely thinking about it, but whoever figures out how to harvest methane hydrates economically will control energy markets for the next century. And you need to know where the deposits are. You need to map the ocean floor. You need monitoring stations collecting data. See the pattern? Everything comes back to the deep ocean. And everything comes back to whoever gets there first. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The U.S. built its global power on two things: control of the seas and control of the skies. Aircraft carriers, and fighter jets. For 80 years, that's been enough. But the game's changing. China can't beat the U.S. Navy in a traditional fight. Not yet, anyway. But they don't need to. They just need to make the ocean too complicated, too risky, too monitored for the U.S. to operate freely. If every American submarine knows it's being tracked, if every undersea cable is vulnerable, if every naval movement is watched by sensors that can't be destroyed without starting World War III, then what good is having the biggest navy? Has 11 aircraft carriers. China has 3, soon to be 4. But China has hundreds of deep-sea drones, thousands of monitoring devices, a decade head start on ocean floor mapping, and a willingness to push boundaries in ways democracies struggle with. No environmental impact studies, no public debate, just move fast and deploy. There's a reason the Pentagon's suddenly talking about multi-domain warfare. It's not just land, sea, air, space, and cyber anymore. The 6th domain, and it might be the most important one. So what happens next? Honestly, it's anyone's guess. The International Seabed Authority, the UN body that's supposed to regulate deep-sea mining, is a mess. Countries can't agree on rules. China's making claims. The US is scrambling, and meanwhile, the technology keeps advancing. We're probably 5 years away from fully autonomous underwater mining operations. Maybe 10 years from permanent deep-sea research stations with rotating crews. And somewhere in that timeline, someone's going to push too far. A cable's going to get cut. A monitoring station's going to be sabotaged. And suddenly, a conflict that started 7 miles underwater becomes everyone's problem. The Mariana Trench isn't just a hole in the ocean anymore. It's a strategic asset. It's a listening post. It's a resource deposit worth trillions. And it's a preview of what the next century of competition looks like. Not armies marching across borders. Not missiles flying through the sky. But quiet, invisible moves in places most people will never see. The question is, what's the U.S. going to do about it? What happens when everyone realizes the ocean floor is the last unclaimed territory on Earth? The race is already underway. Most people just don't know they're watching it. But that thing China dropped into the Mariana Trench, that was the starting gun. And whoever wins this race doesn't just control the ocean. They control everything that depends on it, which, as it turns out, is pretty much everything. Thanks for watching. If you want more videos breaking down the strategies and stories reshaping global power, hit that subscribe button. This stuff matters more than you think.